And before I go on to her, I'll just stop sharing the screen. I'll introduce Sister Nalisha for all of you. If you can just spotlight her as well, Sister Anu. Yeah, and she is with us for the first time, but many people know her because I think they all had the USA teachers meeting and all of you know her very well that way. But on our series, she's the first time. And let me tell you a few things about her. She's very humble. She hasn't shared a lot about her achievements, and whatever little bit I have, I'll share that with her. So she's still currently working very much as in the Lokik world for a non-profit organization based in Washington, D.C. as a labor rights activist since 2002, almost 21 years now. And she strongly advocates for the rights of workers all around the world. In addition, looking at her alokik spiritual life, she's into this journey of Raj Yoga meditation for the past 36 years. It's a pretty long time. And what she appreciates about this practice is it has given her a good guiding tool for decision-making, for dealing with stress, combating burnout, and maintaining a positive perspective despite everyday challenges which life presents. And also she is a BA, Bachelor of Arts, and a MA, Master of Arts degree in International Affairs. And as always, we have a poem for our speaker, a slightly lengthy poem. Please bear with me, all of you all. Sister Nalisha, who's been working for the rights of the labor, helping them liberate from the pain, suffering, and stupor, teaching them the skills of meditation off the paper, and helping them to realize their stress, helping them to release their stress like dew of water vapor. She says life has a meaning apart from this physical existence, which is much more deeper. But people are so stuck in relationships like a hanging creeper. So Sister shall guide us today on how to ignite the inner light as a dipper, so that we rejuvenate our existence from raw, becoming more riper. We can then sing the songs of life harmoniously like a rapper, watching our weaknesses though very closely, like being a gatekeeper, and wearing the mighty spiritual footwear, which is indeed very cheaper, doesn't need a lot of dollars, and making me realize that I need to sweep my defects like a skilled sweeper. So with this, I would thank you so much for joining, and also for being there for the first the entire first and the stage is all yours. Thank you.
Wow, I've never had a introduction through a poem. It was beautiful. I'm very touched. Thank you, Manoj Bhai. So I feel like you now know my introduction, but just to start with, if you need a 10-second stretch break, because I know we've been sitting for 1 hour. So maybe you want to just reposition yourself a little bit, get yourself a little bit of movement, because I know when we sit for a lengthy period of time, and for a lengthy period could mean more than 10 minutes, you don't know. The body gets a little tired, the mind might get a little tired. So let's just take big, deep breath in and exhale. Maybe move the feet a little bit, the hands, the shoulders. Take another deep breath in and exhale. Just let ourselves get a little quieter. Remind ourselves to stay in the present moment. Okay. So I would like to start by sharing a few real stories. One is maybe one that many of you can relate to. So during the height of the pandemic for COVID, or even actually at the very beginning. So yes, I work in Washington, D.C. I belong to, in terms of seva, my spiritual sustenance, I grew up in New York under Mohini Didi, and my Lokik family, my physical parents, are in a neighboring state called Connecticut. And it's where most of my spiritual service takes place, between Connecticut and New York. And at the beginning of the pandemic, March 2020, my office, my work closed, meaning we were not allowed to go to the office, but we had to continue working. And when we had left the office, the thought was, I'll see you in 2 weeks, because everyone thought that COVID would be short term, it will pass quickly, and then we will continue with our lives. 2 weeks turned into 4 weeks. 4 weeks turned into 8 weeks. 8 weeks turned into 12 weeks. And it continued. And in Washington, D.C., we were in a bit of a lockdown. So we couldn't go to the grocery store too often. They were closing the public parks. Everything was closing. But because it's a city, there's still people walking outside on the streets. And so first thought is, can I go outside? But what if I run into people? How do I distance myself, but still be able to go outside? And so the fear was making those decisions in that moment. And I still remember it would be a thought that just was like a cloud hanging over me. Because like in the first hour, the discussion was on the unknown. And, I live on my own, in my own apartment. And so my human interaction was very limited. And I was thinking, well, maybe I will go to my parents' home. But then the fear was, well, how do I know if I've been exposed or not? I don't want to bring anything to them. And testing was not an option in the very beginning. It was not common. It was not easily accessible. And so the fear that maybe, what if I have it? I have COVID. I don't want to bring it to my mother and father. So I stayed by myself for several months. And I remember each evening, my family would get together on Zoom. My mother, my father, my brother, my sister-in-law, who, by the way, are both doctors. So happy Doctors' Day. And then their children. And then occasionally other family members would join. And I remember we would have a beautiful time together. We would share what was happening in our day. We would do some meditation. But then whenever the conversation got to COVID, I noticed that there was a switch in my thinking, because my mother and father would say, oh, I went to the grocery store. Oh, we did this. Or we stayed home, but someone came by. And my thoughts started to get angry. It was like a light switch had went from on to off, lightness to darkness. And I got very angry. Why are you allowing someone to come to the home? Why are you going to the grocery store? And what I realized was that anger was rooted in fear. But in the moment, I was just like, I want to control every moment, and I don't have that control. And my biggest fear was, what if something happens to my mother and father and I'm not there? In that moment, it was just anger. And I'm not by nature an angry person. Something shifted. It wasn't until later that I realized it's because I have fear. Fear that I can't protect them. Fear I cannot protect those close to me. There was nothing they could do to change that fear. They were following everything that we had said in terms of guidance. They were being cautious, but that fear continued to be kind of like that cloud that just follows you, that dark cloud where your mood, your emotions, everything gets affected. And it took me a while to realize it wasn't me being angry at them. It was me not having control over that moment. And the fear was so deep that it was expressed in the form of anger. Fortunately, my mother and father are very patient and did not get upset, didn't get negative towards me. They just listened and said, we hear you, because they knew it was my fear. But they also knew it was something that I had to work through. And so after some reflection time, and I had to keep asking myself, what is really happening? What am I truly feeling in this moment? And my immediate response was anger. And I said, no. And I asked myself again, what am I truly feeling? And I reflected, I wrote about it. It took multiple times me asking, what am I truly feeling? And the truth was, my truth was, I was feeling powerless. That's where the fear was coming from. I felt powerless. Once I could acknowledge where that feeling of powerlessness was coming from, then I could start working towards finding some peace with that. I had to remind myself in that moment, well, what is it in this moment I have control over? What is it I don't have control over? I didn't have control over how COVID was going to result and how it was going to impact us for several years, and it continues to. I couldn't lock my mother and father in their home. Even if I was physically with them, it's not respectful nor practical. I had to find a way to regain my sense of power. Yes, there's a physical level of regaining that power. When it comes to COVID, wearing a mask, washing hands, keeping safe distance. But what I needed was not physical power. I needed to develop in that moment inner power. I needed to regain inner power because it was already there. It was just buried. It was covered by fear, by anger, by a sense of powerlessness. And so I've had to go through my own internal spiritual process of regaining that sense of power. And so I'll share more about that throughout our time together. Another story. By the way, feel free to use the chat box. I will make sure I leave time at the end for questions or comments, but please feel free to use the chat box right now. So Manoj Bhai talked about how I'm a labor activist. So 20 years ago, I came into this role through my work where I try to help workers advocate for their rights, better pay, safe working conditions, dignity, respect on the job. In particular, I work with a lot of women and youth. And in a lot of countries, public demonstrations are not considered legal. In a lot of countries, speaking out against the government or against your employer is frowned upon and can cause harm. These are the individuals that I am working with and advocating for, so that they have the freedom to associate, the freedom of speech, the freedom to live with self-respect and dignity. Many years ago, I was in a country where the government is very, even though they call themselves a democratic country, the government has a lot of control. Control over the election system, control over how businesses are run, control on public demonstrations and protests. And when I was there to meet with workers who are struggling, workers who are trying to form associations or what we call labor unions, so that they could collectively advocate for safe working conditions. They were working in factories, in farms, and injuries were high percentage. Abuse and violence was increasing. And so I was there to just meet with the workers. And what was happening is many of these workers who were meeting with my organization were getting arrested or harassed by the police and the government. And I remember one day I was asking some of the leadership, I said, knowing that you could possibly be arrested, or even worse, maybe even harmed physically for your activities, why do you continue to do it? Aren't you scared? Do you have fear? And they said, the reality is fear exists, and every day I have fear. I don't know if I'm going to go make it home tonight. I don't know if my family or someone I know is going to be harmed. But if I live my day in fear, change will not happen. If I don't be that change, if I don't lead through my own actions, how can I ask someone else to do the same? Fear is a reality, he said to me. It's my reality. He was like, it's my wife's reality. He said, but I'm fighting for something that's bigger than me. I need to be part of this change. So my sense of determination, my sense of solidarity for my brothers and sisters, my sense of hope and courage outweighs the fear that still exists. That conversation I had with this leader over 15 years ago, and I still hold it. Fear was part of his reality every day, but he said, I'm not going to let it lead me. I'm not going to allow it to be how I make my decisions. He also reminded me, I'm not going to be reckless, meaning I'm not going to take a risk that I know will result in something, absolutely in something harmful. But I have to remind myself that hope and courage and dignity and self-respect are more powerful than any fear that exists. And so every day he would remind himself that positive change can happen, but I need to be part of it. What he was seeking was, yes, an external change, a change that was more on a physical level. But the messaging behind it reminded me of what really is at the foundation of who we are. Fear is part of our day for many of us. The more we watch the news, the more there could be fear because the thoughts start getting influenced. I'm not going to say don't watch the news. I watch the news every day, just so I have an awareness of when I step foot outside my door, what am I facing? What is it that is going to happen? What is the sense of what's happening in the world today? Mostly so I know how to give compassion to the world. So I know what thoughts to give to the world. But also with my job, I have to know what's happening in the world. I don't want to make this session so much about my job, but just this week, I found out that some of the union leaders we had been working with in Bangladesh and Honduras were murdered because of their activities. Now, this doesn't happen all the time, but it did happen. Their activities of really speaking out, trying to fight and advocate for others. And I was reading kind of the conversations that some of my colleagues had had with their families. And their families said they knew what the possibilities were, but they were not going to allow themselves to stop advocating for what they believed was right. Their sense of honor, strength, courage is what I'm going to remember about them. We knew this could happen, but we knew their positive impact would be outweighing what possibly could happen to them. And so, yeah, they have experienced now severe tragedy. Tragedy, I think many of us fear could happen to those we are close to. But they are not allowing it to stop them. They're saying they led by a sense of dignity and wanting others to experience dignity. I can only be proud of what they did. And as much as the sorrow and sadness is there, they have strength in knowing that courage that they lived by. You know, when we talk about fear, it's often because of what, yes, is unknown, but it's also because I focus so much on what I don't have control over. What if I focused on what I do have control over? And what is the one thing, the root of everything I have control over? What is it? Anyone have any ideas on this? What is the root of what I have complete control over? My mind, my thoughts. Yeah. The thoughts leads to the self. And so I need to remind myself that in moments where the fear is starting to take over, let me pause and ask myself, in this moment, what do I have control over and what don't I have control over? Like imagine, if you're driving, you know where your starting point is, and you know where your destination is. You come to what we call in the US, a fork in the road, meaning you have two roads that you have to choose one of the two to take. So imagine each of these roads will lead you to your destination. One has a lot of holes in it. Maybe there's some construction traffic. It's bumpy. And the other one, it's a new road. Not a lot of cars, smooth. Which route would you take? Which road would you choose? We choose the smooth road, the new road. But what happens is when we start to experience fear or any wasteful thinking, what happens is it's as if we're choosing that bumpy road, the one that could have delays, the ones that will pull us back. And so what happens is when I find myself starting to experience negative thoughts, and the thoughts may not even be seen as fear. Like when I gave you the example in the beginning of this whole situation with my mother and father and COVID, it came out in the form of anger. I didn't realize it was fear in that moment. I had to have a conversation with myself and really dig deep and realize it was fear. And then I had to ask myself, what is it I have control over? And what is it I don't have control over? But also, I have to remind myself, well, where is it that I really want to be in my thinking? What do I want to lead me in my thinking? very often we don't recognize it because we're too caught up in it. We're in that moment, and that external world is just closing in on us. It was like that icebreaker video at the beginning. One thought grows into two thoughts, and it just grows and grows until it suffocates us. At what point can I stop that feeling of suffocation by negative or wasteful thinking? I need to identify it at the very first thought. Because that thought, if I'm not attentive to it, will continue to grow and grow and grow. And so, but it's not just about stopping the thought. Because think about it. If you were to dig a hole outside and just leave that hole, what happens? It starts to collect rubbish. Whatever is out in the elements, in nature, it just starts to fill it. Maybe some weeds will grow. Maybe some kind of garbage that somebody threw outside. But what if I were to dig that hole, plant a seed, give it water, make sure it gets adequate sunlight, maybe give it some fertilizer. I'm giving it love. I'm giving it attention. It can grow into something beautiful. So when I start to see myself moving towards a negative thought, I need to stop in that moment. And I need to shift. And I need to move myself towards a positive, empowering, powerful thought. The problem is we've created habits. And I'm sure that in previous sessions, the word sanskara has come up. We've created habits or sanskars in the way we think. You know, I have a neighbor. She's very lovely, very polite. Whenever I see her, she's very, holds the door open if you're coming behind her. And before COVID, we used to take the public bus, and we both were on the same route every day to go to work. We worked in separate places, but our routes were the same. And every day we'd wait at the bus together. And every day she would say to me, the bus is going to be late. And then she'd say, oh, the bus is going to be late. I'm going to be late for my meeting, because she was fearful, worried she would be late. And I said, the bus will be on time. And she just kept saying, no, it's going to be late. I'm going to be late for my meeting. I'm going to get in trouble with my boss. And she would say that every day. And then the bus came on time. We would get, and right before getting on the bus, and she likes to sit in a very specific section of the bus, she'll say, oh, the bus is going to be crowded. I won't be able to sit in the seat that I like. I said, don't worry, you will get a seat. And there was a seat for her. We're on the bus. She's in the seat that she wants. And then she says, we're going to be late. There'll be traffic. And I said, don't worry. You will get to work on time. this conversation we would have every day. And we would be on time. And then she said, oh, I'm going to be on time for my meeting. I'm not prepared. Her fear was actually about a presentation she had to do. But she found fault and was exhibiting impatience and negativity in every step of the way. And we were having this conversation fairly regularly. And so for a long time, I would have the same conversation. Don't worry, it'll be fine. You'll be fine. And what was happening is, in the beginning, I was like, let me give her encouragement. Let me try to help her. And nothing was changing because she had chosen to stay in this negative way of thinking. It was a choice she was making. And no matter what, I was not going to be able to change that way of thinking. So I had some options. Because what was happening was, when I started to see her, I was starting to get negative in my mind. Oh, here we go again. She's not going to change in her thinking. She's going to complain. And she's taking a lot of my energy. So when I started to see that I wasn't able to change her, but she was starting to change me because of her fear. This was all rooted in her fear. It was starting to make me negative. And then every time I saw her, I would create negative thoughts. And I said, I have to change something. And it's not her. It's me. So I said, I can just be on the same bus and just kind of smile and just have good, what we say in the Brahma Kumaris, good wishes. You know, pure and elevated thoughts towards her, compassion. But there were moments that I myself might have been going through something. And I said, it's a lot of effort. And yeah, I can do that. And I did do that at times. But what I also decided to do was, it's like taking that bumpy road or choosing that smooth road. I was like, I'm going to choose the smooth road. So what did I do? I took an earlier bus. And because I realized that I needed to do some work on myself. I needed to check my own thinking. And also not allow what was her fear to then influence me to become negative. And even though I wasn't experiencing fear, I was experiencing negativity from her fear. And it was starting to influence me. And it was affecting my day. Because I wanted to change my habits in my thinking about her. I also had to accept that I cannot change somebody else. The only one I can change, me. Starting here. And so these examples that I'm sharing with you are all real. I didn't even embellish any of them. These were the realities of how we get affected, how fear can take many forms and influence us. And so it's really about saying, okay, what do I do? How do I switch? How do I shift? The first thing is I have to accept that I need to shift in my thinking. And I need to stop blaming others. That example of COVID with my mother and father, it wasn't because of their actions. They were taking very responsible actions and steps to be safe. But I was blaming them. You're not listening to me. You're taking it too lightly. No. I had to accept that it was my fear that was leading me. It was leading to the way I spoke to them. And they are the ones you could say I love the most, right? Besides God, of course. But it was not love that was coming out. And so I had to accept that I needed to change. But what I also had to do was recognize that I needed to give myself some more love and compassion. It's okay to say, I'm not okay in this moment. I need a little support. Whether it be from someone that you're close with, but what I needed was, in that moment, what I call spiritual support. You know, that spiritual support really is critical for change to take place and to be sustained. That spiritual process is so critical to bring change that's functional. I don't want to make change that's temporary or on the surface. Change that will remain. And so when we talk about fear, it's not because I want something bad to happen. It's because I haven't focused enough on what positive things could happen. Nobody likes uncertainty. It's uncomfortable. It's like driving without a map or knowing where I'm going. I find myself feeling very uncomfortable when I don't know the route that I'm taking. But I've had to accept that maybe I don't know the full route, but I do know that next step that I will take. Because that next step is going to be based on my thoughts. In the Brahma Kumaris, we say our thoughts lead to our words, which then lead to our actions and interactions. The thoughts are like a seed. How I nurture that seed will determine how it grows. A spiritual process helps to nurture the self from the inside out. I can do many things for the body. Eat healthy food, exercise, get plenty of rest. But what am I doing for that inner spirit? We call it the soul. What am I doing to nurture the self? I can be confident in saying all of us have at least one mobile phone, right? If you don't recharge it, that mobile phone will not work. By the end of the day, the battery goes and goes, and then it shuts off. So what do? I charge it. Imagine that inner spirit being like a light bulb. or like your mobile phone. If I don't recharge daily, that light is going to go. And that's where I go towards negative thinking. That's when fear often takes over. 2 days ago, I had a very long work day. It was just many things had to get done. And towards the end of the day, my mind started to wander. Do any of you ever have where like just randomly thoughts start to come to you that have nothing to do with that moment? You think about something you did last week, or you think about your childhood friend from 20 years ago, or you're thinking about just very like, it's like almost like these thoughts just like invade your mind with no relevant reason. And then all of a sudden, fearful thoughts start coming in. In that moment, I have to ask myself, one, what is it I really need in this moment? Because when I find myself all of a sudden developing negative thoughts that then lead to fearful thoughts, rather than allow those thoughts to grow, I will ask myself, what's really happening in this moment? What is it I need? And sometimes the answer could be very simple. I've been so busy, I forgot to eat today, or I haven't had water, or I didn't sleep properly, or even more importantly, I didn't meditate today. Those checking moments, because what happens is if I start creating negative thinking, which often is rooted in the fear of something I don't have control over or is uncertain, if I bring it into words or into actions, or I create very expressive emotions, one, it might influence those around me. Two, it may damage my relationships, where later I have to then spend time to heal those relationships. But the other piece of it is that I've now lost focus from what I needed to get accomplished. So I'm not effective or efficient anymore. So thinking back, I don't know if anyone here is an academic student right now, but I remember when I was studying in school, I was terrible at math. I enjoyed it, but wasn't very good at it. And I remember there were times that I would have fear studying for an exam because I kept thinking I'm going to fail. And I used to get very dramatic about it. Tears. I'd spent so much time focusing on the fact that I was fearful of failing that I lost so much time when I could have been studying. I would spend hours and hours panicking rather than just focusing on the task of studying. And what helped me was meditation. It taught me how to cool down. It helped me to recognize the thoughts were leading to these emotions. But it also taught me how to connect to the supreme source, who many of us call God, that I was not alone. And that I was going to pass. I needed to hear a new language in my own thoughts Just like when you're driving, I chose to take the smooth road versus the bumpy road. Just like in my thinking, I have to choose that I'm going to pass by hearing those thoughts. I needed to hear a new conversation in my own mind. I had to choose new thoughts. I had to create new habits in my thinking. So I have a few helpful tips, then any questions, and then we will close with a short reflection. So helpful tips. I'm going to share my screen. I intentionally did not create a lot of slides because I wanted to just have this conversation, but let me share a few tips to walk away with, okay? So I'll share my screen. All right. Helpful tips. The first one we talked about was actually a formula many of us use in the Brahma Kumaris called SOS. It's managing my thoughts, installing that inner traffic light. So stop, take a moment to stop the flow of thoughts, observe, get to know which thoughts are not as you would like them to be, and then steer. Gently begin to create the type of thoughts you wish to think. So choosing new thoughts, SOS. That's helpful tip one. The second one, having regular conversations with yourself. Asking myself, when I'm starting to feel a negative thought or a negative emotion, including fear, what is my truth in this moment? What do I need in this moment? It's not what others can do for me. What is it I need from me in this moment? Rationalization. What do I have control over and not control over? Let me focus on what I do have control over. This is always a helpful tip. Keep the space you live, work, and spend time in clean. Make your bed every day. Why? A clean environment helps to create a clean mind. Let's declutter. I can change my thinking because thoughts are a choice. Let me have compassion for myself, for the self, acknowledging that I'm doing the best that I can do. Another helpful tip, spiritual practice. I would say probably the most important tip. We need to charging the inner spirit, connecting to the Supreme Source through meditation. Because fearlessness is actually about courage, love, truth, tolerance, and power. And so if you're going to walk away with anything from this session, is to remind myself that I am powerful. So I want you to say it to yourself right now. You can even unmute yourself right now and say it. I am powerful. Can I hear someone say it? I am powerful.
I am powerful. I am powerful.
Exactly. I need to hear that new conversation from me. This is how we develop fearlessness. It's a new conversation that can only be based on love, courage, compassion, truth. Any questions or comments?
So thank you so much, Sister Nalisha. I can't see any other questions, but there's one question which has cropped up in my mind right now. So I am powerful and I can really invoke the law of attraction. But the very next second, I get this thought, probably I am not powerful. So how to deal with this?
We go back to SOS, because yes, I can have that one thought and then the negative thought comes in, because we're still changing those habits. So we have to repeat. We also need to believe what we're saying. Yes, in one moment I feel powerful, and in the next moment I'm not feeling very powerful. So then ask myself, well, what is it I need? What is it that it's okay to say, I need something. It's okay to acknowledge that I'm experiencing some emotions right now that are pulling me down. You never want to suppress. However, I need to then shift that thought. This is why when we say I am powerful, I also need love. I also need a lot of compassion, but I have to be careful not to create excuses. Excuses for why I created that maybe not so powerful thought. And so and this is why a spiritual practice is very important, because if anything, it helps to build that inner power that maybe we couldn't do otherwise. Because if we just try to do it without a spiritual practice or process, it becomes temporary, which is why meditation is so critical to be part of our day. It's like if I don't eat every day, I experience the impact of that. It's the same thing. If I don't nurture the inner spirit, the soul, I'm going to feel the impact of it in a way that pulls me away from where I would like to be, meaning feeling powerful. Does it happen overnight? No. But if I commit to this, make a promise to myself that I'm going to work on it, I will see the shift. And sometimes it's okay to ask for support. That's why we always say Raj Yoga meditation or the Brahma Kumaris is a family. We don't do this alone. It's okay to say at times, I need a little guidance or a little support. It's okay to reach out to a support system too, with the intention of wanting to grow, not with the intention of wanting to pull others into your, misery? They say misery loves company. No, we actually want to say that we want good company. Company that will lift us. It's a good question. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I don't see anything in the Sister Rehna. Go ahead. Yeah, a quick one.
Yeah, it's often seen that one who is actually powerful, very courageous, and who can take care of themselves, don't need a lot of support from others. They receive a little bit none at all of love and compassion. Okay, that's quite seen many times. Many people have seen that. If you're self-sufficient, the attitude will be, okay, they can take care of themselves, they don't need us. So how to keep that balance? How do we maintain a balance there?
A balance of a balance between the care for others or
Yeah, but then even when that person is very courageous and very powerful and very, they don't need much of help. Everybody needs love and compassion, right? So, but the attitude of people, around us is, okay, they can take care of themselves. They don't need. So they, immediately start pulling. They do all the things that will make them pull down, make them feel low, all those things. So what do I need or do they need, whoever is going through that, do they need to tone down a bit of being powerful, or how do we deal with that?
Well, it's a good question. We have to remind ourselves that these, reminding myself that I'm powerful, that I'm compassionate, doesn't need to come out on a physical level. I don't need to be going around saying, I'm powerful, I'm powerful. Yes, it could be joyous to say that, but it's really about what thoughts am I sharing with others? What is that spiritual vibration or that spiritual energy? Because there are going to be people that are experiencing a lot of sorrow, and I can listen, but I have to be cautious not to fall into or be pulled by their sorrow. But I also have to remember that in their moments of sorrow, they might not be ready to hear spiritual knowledge, or they may not be ready to hear how I'm feeling really good, but I can donate through my thoughts, reminding myself that everyone has to choose the direction they want their thoughts to go in. And so I have to also maintain a balance of what I'm showing externally and what I need to do through more a subtle or internal process. But, it's good to be a support system for others, but I have to also be cautious that it doesn't turn into where I lose my sense of inner strength, and so that's why, we always talk about detachment with love, where I give complete love, but I also can't control the outcome. So, all right, so I know our time is almost coming to a close. Thank you for your questions. So let us do a closing reflection.
Nalishha,
yes.
Sorry, before we go for the closing reflection,
yes.
We'll do it. It's okay if we exceed a bit, 5-10 minutes. Is
Okay,
that okay? Okay, yeah, thanks. So I'll just request our seniors that are with us, Dr. Ashok Mehta and Sister Claudia. So both of them to propose the vote of thanks. Yeah, over to both of you. Thanks.
Om Shanti Ashok Bhai.
To unmute. Dr. Mehta, unmute. Yeah.
Hi, Nalishha Ben. Om Shanti. I saw Nalishha Ben first. She was still a student 30 years back in Connecticut at your home.
Yes.
And that was my first visit to US after I became part of the Brahma Kumaris. I think it was 91 or 92, maybe.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
went together in the car to Boston, I recollect. So beautiful. And then I met you much later in Washington in 2000, maybe 7 or so. I do not recollect exactly. Amazing. You are a professor now. You were really professorial, professor of the Godly University. You have taught us some of the finest things in spirituality today. I missed the earlier part because I was away, but I think it's amazing. I enjoyed the later half of the talk. And I think the most important, I am the most powerful. Why only powerful? I am the most powerful. I think this is it, the positive thinking. I always thought that whenever somebody I have to introduce, people who are little, questioning your wisdom in joining Brahma Kumaris, I always tell them that you may not get anything else, but just a school of positive thinking. This is all that you can do all the time, is look at a positive side of life. I think it's so beautiful. to become fearless, you have to be powerful. And that also, you just have to do a simple thing, remove your negative thinking. But that takes time, as you said very nicely. I enjoyed every bit of your talk. So beautiful. And I am very happy that you are on this program, and must thank Manoj Bhai to bring all my old friends back in my contact over a period of time. Thank you very much, Nalishha Bhai. And I look forward to see you sometime in Madhuban. If you let me know when you're coming, I'll come all the way to see you. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you. Thank you.
Om Shanti. Good morning from Vancouver. And then maybe we were almost good afternoon for you and good evening for some who are in India. So it is a pleasure to hear from you. I think after we studied the other, when the Didi was talking about fear, maybe sometime comes from the unknown, like you said, unknown from our past life that we don't know. And that's why when we come to she was talking, especially when you take the plane or something. But also was nice to see when you were also talking again about this unknown part. That's the fear comes. That's why we need to know what is going on, what is happening. Like you said, for you to go to work, you need to know what is happening outside. Not by just talking about that, but at least know what is happening. And also because we have to, in this life nowadays, we have to be really strong and then know that nobody can shake us that much, because nowadays a time of threatening and bullying and all those things happening everywhere. So if we don't know ourselves, then we can be pulled by that fear that somebody is going to do something against me. So then you can see how many big ones like Gandhi, today we were hearing about Gandhi, how he was not fearful. He went through so much to release India from the British. So he didn't have fear. He has his aim. So he just went through his aim. So I think in life, we need to be like that. Do not get too much touched by the fears of others and trying to make us. And we need to know about ourselves and then move forward. So life is going to be easy. Like you said, not go too much into the negativity of others and not too much into our own negativity either, because they can bring those negativity to us. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure to hear from you. It's the first time I met you. So it was a pleasure. Then hope to meet you again.
Thank you, Claudia Van, and happy Doctors' Day. Today is a big day for doctors in the world. So lots and lots of love and good wishes to all of you.
In India, it's a Doctor's Day. I don't think across the world, because you know why it is a Doctor's Day today?
P.C. Roy.
He was a physician to Mahatma Gandhi and second chief minister of West Bengal. And this is his birthday, as well as he became adept on 1st of July. And, there's an honor in his name, Dr. B.C. Roy Award. It's the highest honor to a medical doctor. I was fortunate to have it in 1996. It's a long, long time back.
Many congratulations.
Today is Canada Day as well. So happy Canada Days to all.
Happy Canada Day also.
So thank you so much. And I'll just take a few more minutes to do a few announcements, and then I'll give it to you for the reflection. So as always, we are finishing the Fearlessness. We did a silence retreat last Sunday. We did the workshop. Now I'm sure we are powerful souls. So let's move on to the July month, all sorts of 2 different values now. So we finished with the Shiv Shaktis. Now we are with the Pandavas in the next value. So it's commitment, and episode 69. We know what 69 holds significance for us at Brahma Kumaris. We had a few changes. So we have brothers with us now. And we are so fortunate, just at one request, and they are there, both brother Erics. And both are highly committed souls in the Brahma Kumaris roles they play. Brother Eric Lareste is the National Coordinator of Canada, and Brother Eric Larson is the Director of Brahma Kumaris in New York, USA. I'm sure Nalisha sister knows him very well. Even I know him because having met him, beautiful souls. And the way they, again, we know Brother Eric of Canada very well, but they also gel well on a very different level when they speak to seniors as well. So I'm sure we'll have a blast of conversation with them on the next Saturday. Just one change is the time is just to suit both of them because both of them have many commitments. Brother Eric of Canada is in Peace Village. Brother Eric himself is doing many other online programs of USA. So it will be half-hour delayed. So just keep a note of that. So 8:30 p.m. for India and 11 a.m. for East Coast. And therefore it will be 8 a.m. for the West Coast. So again, another brother for the workshop, not new for us. Next Saturday after that, 15 July, he'll be doing the workshop. Brother Yogesh Sharda, as always, experiential exercises followed by his talk. And this is our elegant calendar. We have the next value coming up after commitment is dedication. So we'll be doing the announcements later and the silence retreat as well later. For people to just browse at the workshops and the episodes, these are the links which you can find all the videos on that. They are freely available. Our websites and emails are mentioned here. I'll just stop sharing the screen now. And I think we always have a request, Sister Nalisha, that they want to have a photograph with the guest speaker. So I would request Sister Anu to take a photograph quickly. If all of you all can switch on your videos, it would be great.
Yeah, we don't want to miss it. And to have this sweet memory moment with Sister Nalisha. So everybody switch on your video, whoever wants to be in the video.
And it's Happy Doctors Day to all the spiritual doctors. We are double doctors, but you're at least single doctors. So Happy Doctors Day to all of you as well. I hope it's done.
Yeah, people are so slow. Yes, I got it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. So we can proceed with your reflection and meditation. Thanks.
Om Shanti. Let's take a moment now to become completely still. Stepping away from the roles and responsibilities of your day. Stepping inwards into a space that's quieter, peaceful. Allowing that feeling of peace to radiate within you. Ask yourself right now, what am I feeling? Is there any worry? Is there any fear? Do I need comfort in this moment? If you were looking after a child with those same thoughts, Would you just neglect the child? Or would you respond with wisdom, with love, with words of comfort? Connecting to that deep place of love. What could you say to yourself right now to comfort that part of you that feels pain or fear? You are filled with a deep sense of wisdom. A wisdom that takes birth from silence and peace. Perhaps the fear that you're experiencing just needs pure energy of love. But first, let me pay attention to what the self needs. And then next, let me respond with love, compassion, and wisdom. There are moments that we may feel fragile. And let me offer myself strength and power. We don't need to pretend it doesn't exist. The best we can do is respond with love. Just like we would respond to anyone around us who is experiencing fear or sorrow or pain. Let me offer that same love to myself. Reminding myself that I am a being of peace. I am a being of wisdom. I am a being of love. Let me nurture and offer myself pure thoughts that bring hope, strength, and power to the soul. Om Shanti.
So thank you once again so much for your participation and for your wisdom. Thanks a lot.
It was beautiful sharing. So thank you everyone for being here too.
Thank you so much. It was a beautiful opportunity to be with all of you. I look forward to seeing you again. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.